Clarence Earl Gideon could be considered to be your classic 50s drifter. On his own since after he ran away from home in the 8th grade, Gideon spent most of his time in and out of the prison systems of many states. Eventually, he ended up in Panama City, Florida. Little did he know, he'd soon end up changing the U.S. law as it was known then. Early in the morning on June 3rd, 1961, a burglary occurred at the Bay Harbor Pool Room, a pool hall owned by Ira Strickland Jr. Someone broke a door, smashed the cigarette machine and a record player, and stole $5 from the register. Later that day, someone who lived nearby reported they had seen Gideon at about 5:30 that morning leaving with a wine bottle and money in his pockets. Based on this accusation alone, the police arrested him in a tavern and charged him with breaking and entering with intent to commit petty larceny. Gideon appeared in court on August 4th and was too poor to afford counsel. Gideon believed he was entitled to a lawyer in order to have a fair trial, but his request was denied by Judge Robert McCrary Jr.
I'm sorry, but I cannot appoint you counsel to represent you in this case. Under the laws of the state of Florida, the only time the court can appoint counsel is to represent a defendant in when that person is charged with the capital offense. I'm sorry, but I have to deny your request to appoint counsel to defend you in this case.
United States Supreme Court says I'm entitled to be represented by counsel.
Gideon was forced to defend himself, emphasizing that he was innocent, but was found guilty by that same day. Gideon didn't give up there. He believed his trial was unfair because he could not adequately defend himself against a trained lawyer, so he petitioned for help. From his prison cell in Florida State Prison, he wrote to both a Florida FBI office and a Florida Supreme Court, but from both places, he was denied help. He finally contacted the United States Supreme Court with an appeal against the Secretary to the Florida Department of Corrections, who at the time was H.G. Cochran. Later in the case was replaced by Louis L. Wanewright. The Supreme Court agreed to hear his case. Gideon then went to court again on January 15th, 1963. He was assigned one of the top lawyers in the country, Abe Fortas, who later became a Supreme Court justice. They argued against Bruce Jacob, the assistant Florida Attorney General. Fortas argued that Gideon's trial was unfair because an ordinary person couldn't go up against a trained lawyer and win. Jacob argued back the case was a state issue and that counsel only needed to be given in certain special case, non-capital cases. The court ruled unanimously in favor of Gideon. They determined that the Constitution never says if a case is capital or non-capital, so legal counsel needs to be provided in all cases. Because of Gideon, around 2,000 people in just Florida were freed. Gideon had to go up for trial again, but this time was represented by attorney W. Fred Turner for his trial. Turner quickly picked apart and discredited the prosecution's argument, proving Gideon innocent. Because of Gideon v. Wainwright, counsel is appointed in all criminal cases. It gives people who cannot afford a lawyer a fighting chance in court, which otherwise they wouldn't have. The case has had a book written about it, Gideon's Trumpet, and that later became a movie. The case is even commented on by President Kennedy.